I can say, this is mine, you ain't gonna take it.
Rat Pack legend dies worth $300 million in 1998. What his family did next will change how you see celebrity legacies forever. Most people remember Frank Sinatra for the music, the swagger, that voice that could make grown men cry and women swoon. But here's what they don't tell you. The real story began after he left the stage forever. Behind closed doors, family tensions were brewing over his massive fortune. His widow Barbara versus his 3 children. Millions of dollars, multiple mansions, and a music empire that still rakes in over $10 million annually. But this isn't just another celebrity estate story. This is about something deeper. How legends really live on. How families can either destroy or preserve what matters most. Frank Sinatra once told his daughter Nancy in 1985, "I love being a father and a grandfather." Those weren't just words, they were prophecy. Because what happened to Frank's legacy after May 14, 1998, will completely change how you see family, how you see fame, and how true legends never really die, they transform. Today we're pulling back the curtain on the Sinatra family's 27-year journey, from estate decisions that could have divided everything, to the brilliant ways his children turned inheritance into inspiration, from Nancy's continued music career, to Tina's business genius that preserved a family empire. As Tina Sinatra said in 2015, "It's like he's in my life. People don't forget their parents when they die. If they knew them well, my parent feels like he's with me." This is the untold story of how legends live forever, not through their fame, but through the people who refuse to let them fade away. Let's start where most stories end, with greatness. Frank Sinatra wasn't just a singer. He was a force of nature who rewrote the rules of entertainment. Born in Hoboken, New Jersey in 1915, he climbed from nothing to become the undisputed chairman of the board. The numbers tell one story: 150 million records sold worldwide, 3 stars on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, 9 Grammy Awards, an Academy Award. But those are just statistics. The real Frank Sinatra was the guy who made the Rat Pack legendary. Picture this: Las Vegas, in the 1960s, Frank rolling into the Copa Room at the Sands Hotel with Dean Martin, Sammy Davis Jr., Peter Lawford, and Joey Bishop. They'd perform shows that weren't really shows, they were parties that happened to have an audience. But Frank was also a civil rights pioneer. When many venues still practiced segregation, Sinatra refused to perform anywhere that wouldn't book his friend Sammy Davis Jr. He used his star power to break down barriers decades before it was popular. His music changed everything. Songs like My Way, New York, New York, and Fly Me to the Moon didn't just hit the charts, they became the soundtrack of American confidence. As Sinatra himself said, "When I sing, I believe, I'm honest." Behind the legend was a devoted father. He had 3 children with his first wife Nancy Barbato. Nancy, born June. Despite his complicated personal life, 4 marriages, countless affairs, and a reputation as Hollywood's ultimate playboy, Frank was by many accounts a devoted father. When his son was kidnapped in 1963, Frank didn't hesitate to pay the $240,000 ransom. He even offered $1 million. The stress was so intense that Frank carried a roll of dimes for payphones for the rest of his life, a habit that lasted until his death. But success came with a price. The constant touring meant he missed bedtime stories and school plays. His marriages crumbled under the weight of fame. By the 1990s, the man who once owned Las Vegas was fighting a different battle against time itself. High blood pressure, heart problems, dementia creeping in like a thief in the night. Still, nobody expected what happened next. May 14, 1998, Cedars-Sinai Medical Center, Los Angeles. At 10:50 p.m., Frank Sinatra's heart gave out. He was 82 years old. His wife Barbara was by his side. The world mourned. The Empire State Building turned blue. Las Vegas dimmed its lights. But behind the public grief, a private drama was about to unfold. Just days after his celebrity-studded funeral, Attorneys filed a 30-page will that would shock even his closest family members. Frank's estate was massive, $300 million in today's money. That included multiple mansions, a music catalog generating millions annually, personal belongings worth fortunes, and the most valuable asset of all, the rights to the Sinatra name and likeness. But here's where it gets interesting. Relations between Barbara and Frank's 3 children had been consistently portrayed as stormy. Nancy Sinatra later publicly claimed that Barbara hadn't even bothered to call Frank's children when he was close to death, even though they were nearby. The children missed their chance to be at their father's bedside when he died. 22 years of marriage, countless family dinners, holiday celebrations, but when the chips were down, the family was divided. Frank knew this. He'd watched the tension build for years. The subtle comments, the cold shoulders at family gatherings. His children felt like outsiders in their own father's life. So he did something brilliant. Something that would either save his family or destroy it forever. Frank included what lawyers call an in terrorem clause, a no-contest provision. Anyone who challenged the will would be completely disinherited and get absolutely nothing. As one legal expert explained, he was worried that his wishes could provoke a fight in probate court, so he made sure that his heirs would accept their inheritance his way. It was classic Frank, control the stage, even from beyond the grave. But what did the will actually say? Who got what? And would his gamble work? The answers would determine whether the Sinatra legacy lived on or died with the man himself. As the lawyers prepared to read the document that would reshape one of America's most famous families, nobody could predict what would happen next. The reading of Frank Sinatra's will was like watching a master conductor orchestrate his final performance. Barbara Sinatra, his 4th wife, received the largest share. She got at least $3.5 million in cash, plus their Beverly Hills mansion, the Malibu beach house, and the Palm Springs desert estate. On top of that, all the silverware, books, paintings, a Mercedes-Benz, a Rolls-Royce, and 25% of his personal property. Most importantly, she got the trilogy master recordings and all related rights and royalties, a source of ongoing income for decades. But here's the key detail. Barbara also inherited Frank Sinatra Enterprises, the company that controlled his name, likeness, and licensing deals, his most valuable asset. Now what about his children? Nancy, Frank Jr., and Tina each received $200,000 in cash. That's it, plus whatever was already in existing trust funds. Frank Jr. got his father's sheet music collection. To put this in perspective, Barbara walked away with well over $100 million. The 3 children who shared Frank's DNA got $200,000 each. You might think this would trigger a legal war, but Frank was smarter than that. His no-contest clause was bulletproof. It spelled out 13 different types of legal actions that would trigger complete disinheritance. Challenge the will, lose everything. Question the trust, gone. Try to remove the executors, the children had a choice: accept what Frank gave them, or risk losing it all. They chose wisdom over conflict. But the story doesn't end there. Frank had other people to take care of. His first wife, Nancy Barbato, the mother of his children who never remarried after their 1951 divorce, received $250,000 after decades of raising their children mostly alone while Frank chased fame and other women. That's what he thought she deserved. His granddaughters Angela and Amanda Lambert got $1 million added to a trust fund established in Even his household staff wasn't forgotten. Dorothy Ulliman and Elvina Joubert each received. His best friend Jilly Rizzo was set to get $100,000, but he had died before Frank. But perhaps the most revealing detail was this: Frank forgave any and all loans or indebtedness that his children owed him at the time of his death. Even in his final act, he was still taking care of them. The will worked exactly as Frank intended. No court battle, no family feuds splashed across tabloid headlines, no destruction of the empire he'd spent a lifetime building. As his attorneys noted, Sinatra's will covered only a portion of his wealth. Much of his estate was left in a living trust, which remains private, but there were still surprises ahead. Claims from alleged children. Julie Sinatra, who legally changed her name from Julie Ann Maria Lima, claimed to be Frank's daughter and was awarded $100,000 by the estate. Even actress Eva Bartok claimed her daughter Dina's biological father was Frank, and in 2013, Mia Farrow suggested that her son Ronan might possibly be Sinatra's child. But the real test wasn't legal. It was personal. Could Frank's 3 legitimate children turn their modest inheritance into something bigger? Could they preserve their father's legacy without the massive resources Barbara controlled? The answer would surprise everyone, including Frank himself. Nancy Sinatra wasn't just Frank's oldest child, she was his musical heir. Born June 8, 1940, Nancy first appeared on her father's TV variety show in November 1957, but it was 1966 that changed everything. These Boots Are Made for Walkin' didn't just become a hit, it became a cultural phenomenon. The song was written by Lee Hazelwood, who would become Nancy's primary collaborator. Together they created a sound that was pure swinging 60s, bold, defiant, and unforgettable. But Nancy's biggest hit wasn't solo. Something Stupid, her duet with Frank, became the only father-daughter duet to ever top the chart. Imagine that moment in the studio, 2 generations of Sinatra magic, creating something that would outlast them both. When Frank died, Nancy could have retreated into grief. Instead, she became the family's cultural guardian. At 84 years old in 2024, Nancy continues to preserve her father's legacy through multiple projects. She published 2 books about Frank Sinatra, My Father, in 1985, and Frank Sinatra, An American Legend. For 14 years, Nancy hosted Nancy for Frank on Sirius XM's Seriously Sinatra station, sharing stories and music that kept her father's memory alive for new generations. The show ended in March 2021, but its impact lasted. Nancy's own musical journey never stopped. Between 1966 and 1972, she released 7 solo albums, plus collaborations with Lee Hazelwood, and a Christmas album with her father and siblings. After a quieter period, she made a comeback with One More Time in 1995, then continued releasing music regularly. Her most recent album was 2013's Shifting Gears, and in 2021, a new compilation, Start Walkin' 1965-1976, introduced her music to streaming audiences. But Nancy's smartest move was thinking generationally. She has 2 daughters, AJ and Amanda, with her second husband Hugh Lambert, who died in 1985. Through them, she now has grandchildren, who help keep both her legacy and Frank's alive. In a recent interview, Nancy shared, "I'm blessed to have 2 kids who care about my legacy. They were the ones who put together my new compilation album." Nancy also understood something crucial. Preservation requires more than just nostalgia. The Sinatra family income archives, now maintained by Frank Sinatra Enterprises, ensure that future researchers and fans have access to authentic materials. As Nancy told People in 2021, "I'm blessed to have been here this long. If I can be of help to people, that would be wonderful." She wasn't just keeping her father's memory alive, she was showing the world how legends pass the torch. Frank Sinatra Jr. lived in the longest shadow in entertainment history. Born January 10, 1944, Francis Wayne Sinatra wasn't technically a junior. His father's middle name was Albert, but he carried that title his entire life, along with everything it meant. The younger Sinatra hardly saw his father, who was constantly on the road, either performing or working in films. From his earliest days, Frank Jr. wanted to become a pianist and songwriter. Then came the moment that defined his childhood. December 8, 1963, Frank Jr. was kidnapped at age. The ransom demand, $240,000. Frank Sr. paid immediately, even offering $1 million. His son was released unharmed 2 days later. The trauma ran deep. Frank Jr. disliked talking about the incident and refused to discuss it throughout his life. But it also revealed something. When it mattered most, Frank Sr. would move heaven and earth for his children. Frank Jr. chose music anyway. By 1968, he had performed in 47 states and 30 countries, had appeared as a guest on several television shows, including 2 episodes of the Smothers Brothers Comedy Hour with his sister Nancy. Critics were tough. Living in Frank's shadow meant every note was compared to perfection. But as one music critic wrote in 2003, there aren't too many singers around with Sinatra's depth of experience in big band music, or his knowledge of the classic American songbook. Frank Jr. eventually became his father's musical director and conductor, bridging generations of Sinatra music. As the senior Sinatra outlived one by one all of his conductors and nearly every arranger, and began to grow frail himself, his son knew he needed someone that he trusted near him. On March 16, 2016, while on tour in Daytona, Florida, Frank Jr. died of a heart attack at age 6. Nancy announced his death on Facebook. "Sleep warm, Frankie." He never escaped his father's shadow, but he also never stopped honoring it. If Nancy was the cultural guardian and Frank Jr. was the musical bridge, Tina Sinatra was the business mastermind. Born Christina Sinatra on June 20, 1948, Father's Day, Tina was Frank's youngest child. When her parents divorced 3 years later, she barely knew life with both parents together. "Your parents are everything to you," Tina told the Republic in 2015. "My dad was just a parent from a bit of a greater distance. He took us on trips, like any other parents, sometimes without mom. And we had a little more fun when we were with him." Unlike her siblings, Tina never wanted to be a performer. In her memoir, she wrote that she lacked the ambition and confidence to become an actress. Instead, she became something more valuable, a protector. In the 1970s, at her father's request, she began to take charge of parts of the elder Sinatra's career. While Frank was still performing, Tina was already thinking about legacy management. When Frank died, Tina took control of Frank Sinatra's film and music legacy. This wasn't just inheritance, it was responsibility. She became the keeper of the archive, the guardian of the brand, the final word on what carried the Sinatra name. Tina's business sense was extraordinary. She produced the 1992 television miniseries Sinatra and the 2004 remake of The Manchurian Candidate. Frank had owned the original film's legal distribution rights until his death. But her masterpiece was My Father's Daughter, published in The memoir didn't shy away from Frank's complicated personality, his temper, his demands, his flaws. But it also revealed the man behind the myth, a father who could be tender, generous, and deeply loving. When asked by The Independent in 2000 how she was most like her father, Tina answered, "An inability to sleep, and his temperament, to a degree." Recently, Tina was involved in producing Sinatra the Musical, which premiered in the UK. "We're breaking something for a world audience," she shared. "That was the endeavor, to put Dad's music on a live stage for all generations to learn about and enjoy." Even in 2025, Tina remains active. At age 77, she was recently photographed in Los Angeles, still vibrant, still engaged with preserving her father's legacy. Together with Nancy, she made perhaps their most meaningful gesture yet, donating Frank's family piano to UCLA's Herb Alpert School of Music in 2020. As Tina said in 2015, "It's like, he's in my life. People don't forget their parents when they die if they knew them well. My parent feels like he's with me. I don't feel separated from him." Here's what Frank Sinatra probably never imagined. His legacy would be stronger in 2025 than it was when he died. Frank Sinatra Enterprises continues to generate substantial revenues annually through music royalties, licensing deals, and brand partnerships managed by the family. After Barbara Sinatra's death in 2017, control of Frank's empire shifted to a combination of business managers and family members. The children, who received relatively modest cash inheritances in 1998, now had a voice in managing their father's multi-million-dollar legacy. But the real magic isn't financial, it's cultural. In 2021, Nancy and Tina participated in the Dean Martin and Frank Sinatra Family Christmas Show, which was revived for the first time in Imagine that moment. Two families, two legacies, coming together to celebrate the music that defined an era. The UCLA piano donation represents something even deeper. That Steinway piano had been used by various music legends at Frank's Palm Springs home. Nancy and Tina could have kept it as a private treasure. Instead, they turned it into a teaching tool, ensuring that young musicians could learn from the same keys Frank's fingers once touched. Frank's influence reaches far beyond nostalgia. Modern artists still sample his music. Wedding planners still play The Way You Look Tonight. New York, New York remains the unofficial anthem of the city that never sleeps. His best-selling album, Songs for Swingin' Lovers from 1956, generated $100 million in revenues in today's money. Music industry experts continue to value Sinatra's catalog as one of the most enduring in American popular music. But perhaps the most important legacy lives in the lesson his children learned. You can honor the past without being trapped by it. Nancy continued making music into her. Frank Jr. spent decades conducting orchestras and preserving the great American songbook. Tina built a multimedia empire around her father's brand, while writing honestly about his flaws. They didn't just inherit money, they inherited responsibility, and they turned that responsibility into something beautiful. As Nancy said in 2021, "I'm blessed to have been here this long. If I can be of help to people, that would be wonderful." Frank Sinatra may have left the stage in 1998, but his family ensured the music never stopped. So whatever happened to Frank Sinatra's legacy? It didn't die, it transformed. From potential family division to unified mission, from estate decisions to business brilliance, from grief to growth. Nancy, Frank Jr. and Tina proved something beautiful. Legends don't need to be perfect to be eternal. They just need to be loved by people who refuse to let them fade. Tina Sinatra put it perfectly. People don't forget their parents when they die. If they knew them well, my parent feels like he's with me. I don't feel separated from him. Frank Sinatra sang his way from Hoboken to immortality, but it was his children who ensured he'd stay there. Every time you hear My Way or New York, remember, you're not just hearing Frank Sinatra. You're hearing a family's love story. You're hearing what happens when legends live on through the people who refuse to let them go. What family legacy story moves you most? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe for more untold stories of how legends really live forever.